Barbara Cartwright, Peter Kendall,
Good morning. My name is Peter Kendall.
Before we start, we have, are you the appearing together?
Yes, I was going to introduce my colleague.
Okay, great. If you don't mind just to provide your name as well. And so we have two deputants and you may have up to 10 minutes to make the presentation. Please go ahead.
Yes, my name is Paul Warner. I'm the Director of Education for Earth Rangers.
Thank you.
And I am Peter Kendall. I am the founder and one of the founders and executive director of Earth Rangers. I'm also the executive director of the SHAD Foundation, a private foundation which funds wildlife conservation and animal welfare programs across the country. I'm also a board member of a number of different nonprofits, including the Nature Conservancy. Earth Rangers is a registered charity. We are the largest kids conservation organization in the world, with over 165,000 members across Canada. These are all 6 to 12-year-old kids. Our mandate is to educate children about the importance of protecting biodiversity and provide them with tangible ways to help protect wildlife. The main way we reach children is through live animal assemblies in schools. We present over 1,200 of these programs each year in every province and territory. Our assemblies are not simply one-time interactions with students, but rather the inspiration point to start their own animal-saving journey by joining Earth Rangers. Once they join Earth Rangers, our members spend time learning more about wildlife, raising funds for wildlife conservation projects, and completing home-based missions like building pollinator gardens, doing shoreline cleanups, and exploring local parks. As our core members are 6 to 12-year-olds, all of these activities are done with their families, dramatically increasing our reach and introducing wildlife conservation to new audiences. The impacts of our programs speak for themselves. In the last 60 years, our members have raised over $2.8 million for important wildlife conservation work. And so this is all through bake sales and art sales and lemonade stands. So as you can imagine, that's a lot of lemonade. And they have completed hundreds of thousands of home-based missions. More importantly, our third-party research with Ipsos Reid has clearly demonstrated that when children engage with Earth Rangers, they not only have higher reported environmental knowledge and action, but they also feel more confident and optimistic about their ability to make a difference in the world. Earth Rangers was founded in 2004. Over the years, we have tried many different ways to motivate kids and have found without exception that the most powerful way to reach children on these important issues is through live animals. As part of the consultation process, we provided recommendations which included support for an annually renewable license. We remain fully supportive of a licensing system and are more than willing to meet or exceed any standard the city would require. However, without a licensing program in place, Earth Rangers would ask that you consider adding in an exemption for our programs. We believe that we should be granted this exemption for the following reasons. First, we're a registered charity with the sole goal being to educate and inspire children to take action to protect animals and the environment. All of our programs are offered free of charge and in both official languages, allowing us to bring our programs to underserviced areas, Indigenous communities, and French schools, all areas that typically do not receive this type of programming. We conduct all of our programs excuse me, with the highest standards of care and welfare for our animals, staff, and an audience. We have delivered tens of thousands of these programs across Canada without any incidents whatsoever. Our $5 million annual budget provides us with the ability to not only sustain but grow our programs. We also work in partnership with numerous wildlife and conservation groups, including the Toronto Wildlife Centre, Environmental Defence, and the Toronto Zoo, as well as all levels of government, including the City of Toronto. In fact, our partnership with the City of Toronto, we have provided free summer programming on Toronto Island and inspired our members to raise over $100,000 for turtle habitat rehabilitation work on Toronto Island. This partnership was also instrumental in the city receiving a major gift from the Weston Foundation. Under the proposed bylaw, a majority of Earth Rangers animal ambassadors, including all of our mammals, would be prohibited within the city. While it might seem easy for an organization like Earth Rangers to continue operating with non-prohibited animals, this is simply not the case. With 5 teams on the road every day across Canada, scheduling both people and animals is very complex. In addition, animals are bonded to specific trainers, which often takes years of careful training to develop. Having access to all of our animals is critical to the success of our program. Although it is not what we choose, given that our programs are free and we have a huge unfulfilled demand for them across Canada, we would have no option but to stop delivering programs in Toronto, a decision that would affect many groups within the city, including the over 10,000 members that we have within the City of Toronto and their families, the over 20,000 school children in Toronto who currently experience our programs each year, Toronto Parks, Forestry and Recreation, who receive high-quality free programming and funding from our members, and institutions such as the Royal Ontario Museum, where we've provided extensive programming to over 70,000 patrons. To summarize, Earth Rangers has been delivering free, industry-leading programs in the City of Toronto for over a decade now without incident. We have strong third-party research that demonstrates the positive impact of our programs. And while we do not believe the intent of this proposed bylaw was to ban quality programming for children across the city, this will be the unfortunate result. In the absence of any other options, Earth Rangers request that we grant an exemption to the new bylaw.
Thank you. Paul, are you making a presentation as well?
I'll just come out for
great.
questions, yeah.
Thank you. Any questions? Visiting members first. If not, Councilor Nunciara, you're first.
Yes, you mentioned your budget is 5 million?
Yes.
Right. So other than lemonade stands, where do you get your funding?
We're about 20% government funded, which is primarily the federal government, but also the province of Ontario and Alberta and New Brunswick. About 30% corporate funded. We have about 20,000 individual donors, and the rest is foundations.
Are there membership fees?
They're not. It's a free program for the kids.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Speaker Nunciara. The Vice Chair Karijanis, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. I want to try to speak over my colleagues, which does a disservice to you. Do you have an aggressive plan in reaching out to schools, to children? I'm not sure, but I think I've seen one of your ads on TV. I could be incorrect on that. Can you tell us about your plan, please, and how you reach out to schools? And
So we reach children through two primary ways. One is the work that we do with Chorus Entertainment. So we run regular PSAs on all of their stations. But the main way that we reach kids is through these school assembly programs. Because we've been doing this for over a decade now, schools contact us usually when we open up applications for the coming year. We're booked out within about a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
how many schools would you say you've reached out, or schools that have reached back to you in Toronto?
We get hundreds a year, so we have the ability to do between 60 and 100 per school season, but we get hundreds of requests every year that we just possibly can't fill them all.
The schools that you don't reach out to, or the schools that have not had the success of you going to, how disappointed, I mean, do you get any people that says, we're sorry, don't see you, and disappointing letters? I mean, is there a need for you to increase your capacity?
Absolutely. There's always a need across the country, but very specifically in Toronto. Generally, what happens is we put them on the list for the following year where possible, but they will sit on a waiting list for years, as a matter of fact, in order to get our program.
Yeah, thankfully, we were just given almost $1 million from the federal government to help us almost double our presence in schools.
Mr. Caliban, and please take the conversation to the back. We can hardly hear the deputant.
You shouldn't be in here.
Thank you. Please move to the other side. Thank you. Please go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Have you heard back from teachers that have children with special needs, how your presentations had affected the children, how it's helped the classroom, how it's helped the teacher?
Absolutely. I mean, it's anecdotal, but I can think of one teacher who came to our annual meeting last year to talk to our board about the impact that the program had on one of her students who was autistic. And she had used the assembly program and our follow-up programs as a sort of context for the kid, for this child throughout the year. And the child had done a lot of research around different endangered animals, had made presentations to the other students, and and what we heard from the teacher was how that child was now more accepted in the school. Other kids were coming up to her at recess and asking her questions about wild animals, and she became a bit of an expert in the school on this issue, which really increased her confidence and pride.
Do we need more time to do outreach to the teachers themselves? Because, like, I mean, I spoke to my daughters, all 5 of them are teachers. One of them teaches kindergarten. She's been a teacher for 10 years. She's a steward, and she didn't hear about this program. As a matter of fact, she was dismayed that we would be going in this direction. Do we need more time to do outreach to the educational folks out there?
Absolutely. I completely agree. I think we need to delay this process and give more time for them to weigh in, because I firmly believe that if this goes forward the way that it is, there'll be a huge hole there, and they will be disappointed for sure.
How much of a deterrent would it be to the families and to the educational community that have children with special needs if we go in this fashion right now?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer, but we know, all we can speak to is the impact that we have. We often, in all of our assemblies, because they can only fit so many kids in the gym, we're often asked to include those classes, and of course we always do. And so the school is always forced, or not forced, but often has to decide which grades can go in and which grades can be a part of this program, and without fail, they are always included, and it's because of the benefit that they receive
So
from
if
that.
we move in the direction that we're thinking of moving today, or is recommended that we move today, your 60 schools that you reach out in Toronto, you won't be able to do them.
No, we will not be there, no.
So the hundreds of schools that are on the waiting list,
That's right. They will not get our programs.
too bad, so sad.
It's unfortunate. That's absolutely not the direction that we want to go into, but that would be the outcome, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Maker, you're next.
Hi, through you, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for coming today. I think you just told Councillor Karagianis that if the bylaws that we passed today went through, your organization wouldn't be going out to schools in Toronto. But you have animals that you could take to the schools in Toronto. You wouldn't be able to take the lynx, but you would be able to take some of your birds of prey, for example.
Yes, but the problem we have is this would prohibit the majority of our animals, and then, as I was saying in my remarks, we have 5 teams that are out every day right across the country, and so scheduling of animals is very difficult for us, so the problem is we're going to naturally go to where it's easiest for us to work as well, since we have such high demand for the programs and they are free of charge. If it becomes very difficult for us to operate in Toronto, we're just going to increase our presence in Vaughan and in Oakville and other areas.
Right. So,
I mean, it's not, again, not what we want to do, but it's it's inevitably going to happen.
You might choose not to go to Toronto schools, but it wouldn't be that hard. I'm looking at the animals.
Logistics for these kind of programs are incredibly difficult. You can't just say, oh, you've got these animals, so send them to Toronto. It doesn't work that way. There's certain animals that work with certain presenters, and those presenters are right across the country. And so, we could eventually design a program and develop teams specifically for Toronto.
That's just what I was thinking. You wouldn't have a Toronto team because there's 2.5 million people here that you'd say, this team has these species that are permitted in the city, and we're going to go and educate the kids because we love the kids and we have a conservation ethic we want to teach them. You could do it, but you might not do it, just depending on a whole bunch of factors.
Yep.
Okay, okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, thank you for your presentation.